Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, thank you for having me today. It's an honor to be able to give a presentation to the school that I graduated from. Again, my name is Detective Jonathan Goehring. I am currently a detective with the state of Florida's Department of Financial Services Division of Investigative and Forensic Services Bureau of Insurance Fraud. In short, I like to say the state police. It's very hard to put it all on a business card. So basically, in sum, I am a detective that investigates complex white-collar crime with a nexus or connection to an insurance carrier. On the side, I also investigate any and all violations pertaining to a licensee holder. So we handle anything from a dirty insurance agent, a dirty contractor, all the way up into a doctor acting unprofessionally. You know, we lawyers, everything, you name it, we investigate it. I know some of you might be thinking, wow, he is extremely young to be doing it. Up until last 2 months ago, I was the youngest detective in the state of Florida for my agency. We hold over 300 something detectives throughout the state and multiple field offices. A younger detective was picked up before, a little bit younger than me. So a little bit about my background. I'm 25 years old. I began my law enforcement career, I like to say, at the age of 13. When I was in middle school, I didn't have much of a drive or ambition as to where I wanted to go. And my grades reflected that. And I really didn't have a sense of pride where I was going, and I was getting into a lot of trouble. And it kind of came down to the point where I thought my parents threatened to send me off to military school. I ended up getting involved with the Lake County Sheriff's Office Explorers Program, Post 60. Didn't know much about it, didn't even know really what I wanted to do with my life. And at the time, the Explorers Program is a program that takes teenagers between the ages of 13 and 21, and they expose them to a life as a deputy or even as a police officer. But more importantly, the underlying goal is to develop, quality, sound citizens that are going to go out and be beneficial, whether they go in the public sector or whether they go in the private sector. It's designed to get them on track to really help them. Well, in my case, I really enjoyed being able to go out and learn about police work. We got to do mock or practice traffic stops. I loved it. We got to wear a uniform that mimicked a deputy sheriff's uniform. Obviously, we didn't have to have all the bells and whistles that a normal patrol officer or deputy would have. But I mean, they would give us rubber guns, and we would do pretty much the mock traffic stops that you would see kind of going on in a real training environment with law enforcement. Because of my experiences, I was able to pursue that path. I was able to get community service, and I was able to work my way all the way up through various ranks as squad corporal, squad sergeant, and eventually post captain, post president. Most notably, my last year there, we went to a national competition in Indiana, and the team that I was leading, we ended up getting first in the nation for hostage negotiations. And we were actually being graded by real FBI agent hostage negotiators. That following summer, when I graduated high school from Eustis High School, go Panthers, I went ahead and I applied to the Lake Technical College's Institute of Public Safety Law Enforcement Training Academy. Understand this, again, I went in at 19 years old. I was the youngest trainee in my entire class. There was people that had just came back from Afghanistan. There were people in their mid-40s, people with prior law enforcement experience, prior military law enforcement experience. And by the time we graduated, I was second in command in my class. I was the class corporal, and I also graduated as top recruit in academics, which is very hard to do. You have to really apply yourself in wanting to do that. Because of my strides and the things that I have done in the Explorers program, Sheriff Borders at the time pulled me aside and with all my family there and said, I would like to offer you a position with the Lake County Sheriff's Office as a full-time patrol deputy. And of course, I took that opportunity very happily. So January 5th, 2015 was my first day wearing a gun and badge at 19 years old. I was a active Lake County deputy sheriff. I spent just under 4 years at the sheriff's office here in Lake County, and I ended up doing 2.5 in road patrol. I've worked I want to say every zone in Lake County. I've worked all the way from Claremont all the way up to Astor and anywhere in between. I really wanted to focus on going back to school and really finishing up my degree, since I had kind of taken a left turn in life. But I knew I needed to have my degree to go farther and advance in my career field that I've chosen. So one way they told me that was and also at the same time too, I wanted to pursue being a detective. And they had told me for the specialty unit that I was looking to go into, they had told me that I needed to go to school resource. So if there's anybody that went to Leesburg High School around 2018, 2019, then I was your school resource deputy. So I was a school resource deputy there while I was attending school full-time online at another school. I learned a lot. A lot of times you learn how to deal with adults, but the other thing about it too is if you can handle children, usually you can handle adults, and usually at certain times. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about how to talk to people and really how to get into investigations. As you guys know, if you're a school resource deputy, you're typically by yourself and you have to learn a lot. And I greatly attribute my success to my time as a school resource officer. Because of the type of casework that I initiated as a school resource deputy, I was offered a brief assignment in the Lake County Sheriff's Office Special Investigations Unit, the Internet Crimes Against Children Squad. So typically, I only handled a couple cases involving the child exploitation side. It was only for the summer, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time there too. I learned a lot about doing search warrants and arrest warrants and really getting down to the roots of detective work. And just an odd time, I was in a gas station one day and I ended up seeing one of my old instructors from the police academy. He worked for the state fire marshal's office under the Department of Financial Services. And he has told me, he said, "Hey, John, I'm retiring and I think you'd be a good fit." And I said, there's no way the agency's going to hire me. There's no way. He said, "Oh, why don't you try?" And so I did. And I showed up. I was one of 2 people to show up on the first day of tryouts. And they said, "Listen, at this point, you're it. As long as you pass the standards that we have, which was not easy, you're in." And at 21 years old, I was the youngest state detective to be hired in my agency throughout the entire state. At 21 years old, I was investigating arson and explosion-related crimes. So, as many of you guys may know, the Umatilla arsonist case that went on, I won't speak too much about it, but I was one of the lead state task force guys that was on that. So I was able to help out with that. And when the state fire marshal's office gets called out, like you were asking, ma'am, is the fire department will the fire department will typically get out there, as we like to say, they'll put the wet stuff on the red stuff. They'll put the fire out, and after the scene is technically cleared semi-safe, they'll call us out and, whatever, 24 hours, any day, any time of night. And there were times where you didn't sleep much at all during a 24-hour period because we were just so busy. And we would be called out and we would be tasked with narrowing down an entire house fire to the size of a beach ball. And that's when I say narrowing it down, figuring out where the fire started. So if you can imagine taking a 1,200-foot square house, if we're lucky, that's actually, that was one of the smaller deals we had to deal with. If you take that size of the house that's completely burned and going around that house and looking for signs to put you down the area of a beach ball of where that fire started, when everything around you is dark and charred and burned and you think there's nothing left. And then in that size of that beach ball, we're going to tear it apart and we're going to find exactly what caused that fire. And sometimes the craziest things it would cause the fires, an extension cord or whatever the case may be. Or sometimes we would have nefarious acts where somebody would set fires. And unfortunately, we had to deal a lot with that. And I've also handled explosions as well. I've only handled one or two, one very notably here in actually Leesburg, which ended up being an accident. But again, because of my experiences and my contacts, I was able to go take a ride in a helicopter and take some pictures. I really enjoyed that. I knew that being a state fire marshal wasn't necessarily what I was looking for a sense of fulfillment. And I knew that I really wanted to do something a little more challenging. I wanted to go after the worst of the worst, the guys that seek nothing more than to victimize other people. And an opportunity came available for me to transfer over to the Department of Financial Services Bureau of Insurance Fraud under the same agency, just essentially moving to a different section. And that's currently where I'm at today. And I really enjoy where I'm at. I'm on the general squad, and my assignment, like I said, is I investigate any and all white collar crime with a nexus to an insurance company. And that includes slip and falls. People don't think about someone intentionally going to a shopping store and spraying WD-40 on the floor and slipping and making a fraudulent fall. And for anybody that's thinking about it, it's a third-degree felony. It's not worth the hit. But all the way up to somebody who's been doing it for 30 years and stealing people's identities and opening bank accounts and just doing horrendous things to people. And even people, we have people that are companies that act very in an aggressive manner, and they dupe people into giving them money. And to me, that gives me the satisfaction of knowing that not only am I taking somebody that has victimized somebody and putting them where they belong, but also going and helping those victims get a sense of a sense of recovery. We're there for them. And that is what I want to be. That's why I became a police officer. I like to help people. And I know that's not as corny as that sounds. And Professor Bridgman can agree with me. The best thing in the world is helping a victim and watching them say, having them say, thank you for everything you did. And that's the biggest thing for me. So, but that's kind of where I'm at now. On the side note, because of where I've gotten and as fast as I've risen, I'm cited to be the lead detective for my squad. I am a certified state instructor, and I'm also a field training officer. So you're muted, ma'am.
We do have a couple questions. One is, how do you handle stressful situations or learn how to handle that? So you mentioned a couple. How did you go into that situation, being able to handle it? Was that part of your training? Is that something you've had to practice?
It is handling a stressful situation is something that is gained over time. There is training that the academy gives you to help kind of handle it. I'd be lying if I told you that you weren't going to see things and do things that will stick with you. And there are things that you have to deal with. And for me, coming in at 19, I can tell you right now, there were days where I'm in a vehicle pursuit and I'm scared out of my mind. I'm sitting shotgun with a training officer that's like, hey, we're going to stop the car. You're going to grab the stop sticks and you're going to throw it out in front of the car. And at 19 years old, I'm normally, I sleep at 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm not normally hanging out. As for dealing with stressful situations, it's one of those things that's inherently designed. You have to, I guess the easiest way is you have to figure out that way that you do it. For me, I deal with the situation at face value. That's what I do. I see the situation and the way I break it down is this: if I'm going into a stressful situation, someone's hurt, there's an emergency where someone needs me right now. In the academy, they teach you scene safety. You can't help anybody if you get hurt. That's the biggest thing about it is they want to make sure that you can be safe when you're operating. And once you're doing that, and if you feel like you're good to go and you're ready to handle it, then from there, you work on making everything else whole again. As for stress, like I said, they handle it very differently. For me, when I was on the road, I would usually pick up the phone and I would call one of my either, when I was living with my parents at the time, I would either call my mom or my dad, or now if I have a very stressful situation, I can call my wife. And really, for me, it helps if I talk it out. If I can talk it out with somebody, that helps me compartmentalize what happened and understand what happened and be able to move on. Now, the other part about working something very stressful, and I will tell you this, being a detective is stressful. And many people may not think that, oh, you're a detective, you sit behind a desk and you handle paperwork all day. You may not think it's stressful, but it certainly is. You have deadlines that have to meet. There's things that you're racing against the clock to try to get done before, or you have a victim that's calling you at 6 o'clock at night, pouring their eyes out because they can't accept what happened. And you have to try to help them and try to fix that problem for them. And that's another reason that helps me deal with the stressful situations is, yes, it's stressful now, but that's the hard work I have now and the stress that I'm dealing with will be way more worth it than, just giving up. At the end, the end result is so much more worth it than what's going on right now. So.
Keep forgetting I put myself on mute.
Okay.
Another question is, when you went back to school, what was the best courses you took to help with your success? So if you could talk a little bit about the training that's maybe required for the type of work. And I think kind of similar is criminal psychology. So if you know anything about it, do you have other people on your team that have either like maybe a background in forensic science or criminal psychology or any other areas? If you could talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. So when I went back to school, understand this. I'm still actually enrolled at Lake-Sumter State College right now, but I'm in the bachelor's program now. Professor Bridgman got me over to the strategic leadership with an emphasis in criminal justice program, and it's going awesome. But when I went to Lake-Sumter State College, education did help me. Education did help me a lot, going back to school, it helped me write better. My grammar got a lot better. When I was at the sheriff's office, I was very spoiled. When I got done with the report, at the end of the day, I just pick up a phone and I'd call a professional on the other end of the line, and I would dictate my report to her, and then she would professionally type it for me. So when I came to the state, it was a shock to me that my grammar and sentence structure wasn't that good. So when I was going back to school, it really helped me refine those skills a lot better. As for certain classes, and I'm not just saying this because Professor Bridgman's on here, one of the classes that I took was an intro to, not intro, it had something, I can't remember the name of it, but it had something to deal with the rehabilitation of defendants back into society. What happens? That's something that very intrigued me. As a police officer, you typically don't think about what's going to happen when they get reintroduced into society. Your goal at that moment is to serve justice. And from that point forward, you hand it over to a state prosecutor, and that prosecutor's job is to further seek that justice, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And then from that point forward, whether that person goes to jail or prison or community control or pretrial intervention is up to them. Your job's done at this point. So to really hear some of the more aspects about what happens after they go to jail. And I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know a whole lot about it, just because it wasn't my job to worry about what they were doing afterwards. I can tell you now, having been through that class and having understood a lot more about what happens after, it helps me in turn go and talk to suspects about, hey, listen, this is what could potentially happen. These are options. If we have a suspect that may be dealing with some drug abuse problems or alcohol abuse problems, I can kind of tell them, listen, when you have the opportunity to speak before a state attorney, maybe offer looking at one of these programs that can maybe get you the help you need. So I think that was one of the biggest classes that helped me. Another psychology one, and this is one of the psychology intro to sociology or psychology, I think it was very interesting to me. Psychology, and even as a detective, it's applied almost every day, everywhere you look. And I like to make the joke, criminal psychology. When I sit down with an interview, and I always tell suspects this, is you are feeling me out because you want to know what I know. And I'm feeling you out because I want you to tell me what I already know. That's the whole game between an interview with a suspect and an interview with a witness. They want to know what you know, and you want them to tell you what you verify what you know. And really, before I started sitting down and taking all these classes, I was like, listen, you're going to tell me what you want to tell me. If you don't, well, shame on you. But understanding the mindset, if someone doesn't want to talk, they're scared, or don't just jump to a conclusion. There's a lot of things going on with someone's mind. So having that understanding, actually, I feel made me be a better interviewer. And since then, I mean, I can tell you, I've got a winning streak right now. I've only had one person tell me they don't want to talk to me. Everyone else just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they like to confess. Everybody uses me at the office. But forensics, forensic accounting, forensic psychology, I don't know if anybody in my office has a forensic psychology degree. I can tell you this, there are forensic psychologists at the FBI and at the federal level. They are very particular who they want to take. So if anyone is wanting to pursue that path, study very hard, make the best possible grades that you can. I can tell you right now, I personally wanted to go to the FBI. I actually was to the point where I had made friends with people at the FBI. At a minimum, you have to have a bachelor's degree. Typically, with the type of bachelor's degree that they want to pursue, they want somebody who has, typically, they'll say anything, they want everything. But if you really want to have a fast track in, you have to have a specialty degree. So someone who maybe has microbiology, or someone who's a pre-med or pre-law candidate. And believe it or not, they hire doctors, they hire lawyers. They're very big into accountants right now and computer people, because if you guys haven't noticed, the way of the future is not by person anymore. The way of the future is by technology. And cyber criminals can rob a bank in 20 minutes overnight, and no one will ever know. And versus someone going in and stick them up, we're taking your money now.
What about criminology majors?
Yeah, okay. So criminology majors can be applied to the criminal justice degree very much. I can't speak too much about it because that's not the degree that I'm pursuing. But there are several people in my office that have had that. And it was Brittany, correct, that it was speaking?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I'm mainly saying pertaining to like forensics. If I wanted to do something forensics, would criminology major help me?
Absolutely, yes. So you're not talking about like forensic accounting, right? Like actual like dusting for fingerprints.
Yeah, like criminal investigating, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. So yes, there is. That would extremely help. Obviously, I know a lot of agencies now, whether at the city level, at the county level, at the state or federal, typically they work off of a point-based system. If you have an associate's degree, you get X number of points. If you have experience, you get X number of points. If you have a bachelor's degree, you get X number of points. They also, and I think Lake-Sumter also offers this too, a crime scene investigation certificate. Either them do, or I think UCF does.
I know UCF does.
Okay. So anything like that will really help. I can tell you right now, and I can only speak as to Lake County. Lake County will hire you with nothing. They are a civilian position. That's all they do 24/7 is they get called out. They run the crime scene. They are crime scene investigators. But I can tell you from experience, the more you're prepared, the more you have to offer, the more you patent that resume, the more chances you are going to be able to do that. So if you, Brittany, for example, if you're going to take classes in criminology where are kind of specialized towards forensics or latent fingerprints or anything that kind of can be applied to that field, and you can talk about that a little bit, you're already off that much farther than the next guy, because like I said, if you come in with a degree, chances are they're probably going to pick you over the 18-year-old that just came out of high school. But never to say the least, who knows? It's really, you can go, and that's the awesome thing about criminology degree. A criminology degree is you can go so many different routes with that. It's not even funny. And just because people want to go in the criminal justice field, you don't have to be a police officer. I can only speak about my experiences. If I could tell you how many different job fields there are in the criminal justice community, I'd be here all day. There's a lot of different opportunities, and I can tell you firsthand, without CSI, without the crime scene investigators, it would be extremely hard to do the detective work, because they're the guys that are going out there, guys and gals that are going out there, and they're getting that one piece of key evidence that the bad guy forgot to get. And they are going and they're making that one thing that's putting it all together. I can tell you right now, for example, I think my analyst, so our office has an intelligence analyst assigned to our squad, or our office, and I believe she has a criminal justice or a criminology degree as well. So she has since applied and also gotten her master's degree, but she is a tremendous help. She doesn't necessarily do any of the forensic stuff, but if I say, hey, I'm having trouble finding Joe Smith, I give her a day and she can tell me pretty much what favorite food he likes. So, I mean, sky's the limit with really that degree. But as for the forensic side of it, you can dabble into the CSI stuff. You can dabble into forensic accounting, forensic psychology if you want to go farther. It's really one of those things that you can tailor it to what you're looking for in your desired field.
Greg, are you familiar with the slight difference between criminal justice and criminology as far as like a degree? I know University of Florida, I think theirs is criminology, and I think University of Central Florida is criminal justice. Do you know?
More than anything else, it's just a terminology thing that people use. Generally, when I look at it and I talk to students, those people who are interested in the criminology aspects are more interested in the causes of crime and studying criminals and the like, instead of doing the how to prevent crimes. Criminology is more theory-based, if you will. Either one of them is going to work fine. As the detective mentioned, bottom line is most departments, if they want education, they don't really care what it's in, as long as you have that educational background. The other part, as you're looking at these different things and with all the different aspects that are out there for a student, if you want to go into crime scene investigation, as an example, which part of it do you want to do? If you want to do the lab stuff, then I would probably look at studying chemistry harder than I would study something else. If you want to work for a medical examiner, then you're going to go the biology route. You find that area that you're passionate about, that's going to keep you interested while you're going to school, and that's the direction I would go.
Thank you. I think there was another student that had a question. Was it Kaylee?
Hi, yes. I did have a question for the detective. And first off, I just really want to say thank you so much for your service. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and for what you do. And for hearing you talk about that you didn't kind of know where you wanted to go, and then you found like the Explorers program and everything. I was just curious on how, like, that moment that you knew that the kind of policing area and field was where you were supposed to be, because I have kind of been going back and forth on a lot of that as well. And I have the same passion as you do with helping other people. I'm a huge victims' rights advocate kind of person. And so I was just curious as to how you knew that that was the area you belonged in.
Thank you. That was an awesome, good question, and it's my pleasure. It's the greatest honor that I've been ever able to do. I love what I do, and it's some days it's hard, it's hard on family time too, especially when you have to do what you have to do. And it's, at the end of the day, it's the best thing. So to answer your question, Kayla, the moment I knew that this job was for me is the moment I was willing to do it for free. The best job in the world, if you love what you do, getting paid is just an added bonus. And I say that every day. And there's days where I've literally made the joke to my wife, what'd you do if I was being a nurse? I said I wanted to be a nurse or I wanted to go back to school and be a teacher. And she said, I would laugh at you. She's like, my wife's a nurse. So she's like, you wouldn't last 1 minute with us. You'd be wanting to jump back in a heartbeat. And there's no greater calling. I'm not going to try to get all religious, but it is the best feeling in the world. And I know right now some people are like, well, how is that possible when, you're being heavily scrutinized every day, it seems like, in the news. And a lot of people, and I've heard too, because of everything that's going on, law enforcement agencies altogether may potentially be losing good qualified applicants because of a few bad apples, because of the negative press that, a lot of the flack that we're getting because of a couple bad people. And I can tell you guys this, having been at the county level and been at the state level, and I've been all over the state, there are tremendous men and women that are here that love what they do. And they're in the same boat with me. The retirees that, when you walk into a restaurant, they talk about, I did 33 years on the job and I would give anything to be back with it. Those are the same people. And one thing that you hear a lot of is, police officers don't make very much. So, and that's one thing too. If you guys are looking into getting into law enforcement, specifically being a law enforcement officer, you don't do it for the money. I mean, the money's nice. Some certain places pay a little bit better than others, but you don't do it for the money. You don't do it for the benefits either. The only benefit is at the end of the day, when, like I said, when you have that victim shaking your hand in tears because of what you did and you helped them and you got their life back together, or you're on the process to it. I'm telling you, it brings tears to your eyes when you hear it. It's an awesome feeling. It's a great accomplishment. And I'm proud to be a police officer. I'm proud of where I am, and I'm proud even in these times where it's hard to say that, when everything you do is so heavily scrutinized. I'm proud to say that though. But to answer your question, the moment I knew this was for me was when I said, there's no way I can live without doing this. In the Explorers program, I was a teenager and I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed interacting with people. In the Explorers program, they allow you to go out and work community service events. I don't know how many of you guys are in Lake County, but the Lake County Fair, we always made contact with people, just talking the breeze with them, enjoying talking to people, and even being a road patrol deputy. For 12 hours a day, if you want to be a good police officer, they always say, don't just sit under a shady tree and pretend you don't exist. Get out there, go to the grocery stores, get out to the gas stations and go say hi to the clerks. And I'll be honest with you, I actually was able to either prevent more crime or catch bad criminals because of when I started connecting with people. I mean, I'm telling you, I had people that would text me at 3 a.m. in the morning. Hey, that robbery that happened the other day, yeah, so-and-so is over at my house bragging about it right now. And then you're like, hey, wow, this person just told me that, a robbery that had no video, no witnesses, no nothing. Now I got somebody that's actually saying this person did it. And I will tell you right now, the community loves it when police officers get out and about and, they're not just there on the negative aspect, they're there just talking. That's why that's why I volunteered, and I was very happy to do this today because I love imparting my experiences and what law enforcement is truly about to you guys. So I hope that answered your question, Kayla. I kind of got long-winded.
No, it did. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to look at the Explorers program now that you've talked about that, because that's something I was looking at a couple years back and I just didn't feel like it was the right time for me yet, but I'm going to look into that. So thank you. I do have a quick question for you. Do you have an email or anything that I could have where I could be in contact with you for further questions if I had anything like that? Or
of course, yes. I'll say it. I'll give it at the end. That way, just everybody has it all together and I'm not tying anybody else's time up.
Okay, thank you so much.
There was another question related to mental health, if there's anything that's offered for officers or just in your line of work? And I think what goes hand in hand is additional training. So is there anything for professional development that you guys are encouraged to do, like learning new techniques or new strategies, as well as protecting like your mental health? If you could talk about that.
Of course. So mental health is something that is crucial, and I'm a very big proponent of it. Um, I will always say this, and I will always speak the truth. You can never have enough of it, and a lot of times the fixes that are put sometimes seem like band-aids. You know, and it's very hard. And it's very unfortunate because, you know, as a police officer, you have 30 minutes to solve the problem, you know, versus somebody who has, you know, family members trying to explain 23 years of this person's life to you in 30 minutes. It's extremely hard. So you have to kind of just pick and sort, you know, for lack of better terms, what's the key words you're looking for and how are you going to respond to it? And for law enforcement, you know, typically there's a thing called a Baker Act or a Marchman Act. Baker Act is an involuntary detention of someone and for the purposes of taking them to go and be taking them to a higher power to be evaluated by a clinician. Or for Marchman Act is someone who may be under the influence of alcohol or narcotics, and they're not safe to be left alone. They're too impaired or whatever the case may be. You don't typically see that a whole lot. The Baker Act side of it is when they're a threat to themselves or others, or they're the informalities of aging have caused them to not be able to care for themselves. I'm always a big proponent of trying to have more options than just taking someone to a receiving facility and then done. And I know right now, I know a lot of the agencies have started a follow-through program. UCF is a prime example. UCF has a dedicated detective, I think one or two, that's all they do, whether people are Baker Acted or not, or have been sent involuntary for evaluations. They follow up with them. You know, they are trying to get them in connection with where they're going to go, where they can get help. You know, another big part of it too is a lot of facilities won't see people unless they have insurance coverage or some way of being able to pay for those out-of-pocket expenses. And it's hard to just, you know, swallow that pill that a lot of these people can't get the help they need because they can't afford it, you know, and then that's the hard part. And that's why I think programs that the sheriff's office do, like UCF does, you know, that help fund these people for going in and getting evaluations is a just imperative. I can tell you on the state side of it though, there is a required mandatory training to renew your certification as a police practitioner. You have to take I think it's either 24-hour or I think it's 24 hours of mental health awareness. And they're also pushing out a mental health awareness for law enforcement. It is unfortunate. One of the leading causes of death is at the hand of law enforcement. Is suicide. A lot of police officers are experiencing a lot of different stressful factors. You know, you go from, and I'm not trying to deter anybody, you go from riding in a car for 12 hours and absolute boredom. You know, well, actually, if you're a good police officer, you're not bored. You always have something you could be doing, or going out and mingling and saying hi. You go from those semi-relaxed moments to you're amped up, you're ready to go, you know, your back's against the wall, things are happening, you know, you got to make decisions quick. Or, you know, back down to you're just driving around, doing your patrols. Oh, now we got to go to a drowning call. Now you just pulled, you know, now you're doing CPR on somebody because they fell in the pool and somebody didn't pay attention. Now you're working so hard, you know, that plays so much of a toll on someone's mind. You know, at the end of the day, police officers are human. There's so much stuff. And, you know, like I said earlier, you will see things and do things and hear things and smell things that you will never forget. Okay. There's things that I remember from day one at the sheriff's office, you know, 6 years later that I remember. And there is a lot of different things out there, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which puts out a lot of the curriculum-based training, they're the ones that have formulated, and they always constantly update what officers are going to do during their initial basic recruit training, all the way up to their continued education to recertify. I can tell you firsthand, they are pushing something out right now. I think that's about 16 hours, I think, that goes and deals with strictly how, dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, when to seek help. These are the state funded programs that you can get. I can tell you right now, almost every single law enforcement agency that I've been a part of or I know of offers what's called an EAP program, an employee assistance program. It's all confidential. You pick up the phone and you can call and you can sit down and you can, if you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody, you can pick up and talk to them on the phone, and you can tell them your frustrations. You can tell them your hardships. You can tell them about that super hard call last night that you just can't seem to kind of let go of. Or they can, they can set up times where you confidentiality is still there. You can still go and you can sit down with somebody, and understand this too. People have this stigma in law enforcement, and this is the hardest stigma to break, is if you are, and this is why we have such a problem with the mental health crisis, is people view going to see a counselor as weak. It's not. And I can tell you firsthand, going and seeking help to get get back in the mental health shape is one of the things where the officers, that's a struggle in itself. And to be able to overcome that fear of being deemed, getting a label, it's the biggest thing. And to me, I think those guys are true warriors. Fortunately for me, I haven't been put in any type of scenarios where where I couldn't get over it. Everything just takes time. But as for training, I can tell you firsthand that I've also been through crisis intervention training. So it's a week-long class where they bring in, they bring in all these different people, clinicians, doctors, psychologists from different behavioral centers and mental health treatment facilities. They bring them all into one spot. And for 1 week, you are taught, you get to hear, what do they look for? Why is one thing done this way? Why are people who need help being released? Whatever the case may be. And the other part that I love about this program is they also bring in people who have some disabilities. They bring somebody in who is autistic or who has Asperger's syndrome, or, one of the things I have just the utmost respect for, a veteran who had combat experience, who had very severe PTSD, who has since overcame it, and he actually runs his own program and came in and talked about, hey, these are some triggers that you might want to try to avoid, how to talk people down. And all this training is being implemented right now. That's one thing that the news isn't talking about. I can tell you firsthand, there is not a single agency in the state of Florida that's not going and trying at least to get some form of training. I know for anybody that's been a school resource officer or a deputy, it's required, I think, by law now that you have to have some form of crisis intervention training, which is paramount, because de-escalation, whether you're working in a school or whether you're working on the streets, is one of the biggest weapons that you have to try to prevent something from escalating bad. Okay, being able to talk to somebody down, and those things now, as everybody's starting to see, nationwide, de-escalation tactics is a very big topic right now. And in a good way, it's going to mean that we're going to get much more training. But I think honestly, just saying that we don't have it isn't really fair to us. But not saying you guys aren't, but the biggest thing is the de-escalation tactics really help put all that together. And there is training like I said, we are taking to get better at it. So.
Well, thank you so much for answering so many of the questions. We're definitely over our time, but that's okay. I see all the students are hanging around, so they must be very interested and invested. If you could share your contact information the best way. I have of course, the email, if that's the one you want, we can put it in the chat. Is that the one you want us to share?
fine.
Okay, so I'll put his email in the chat. If you have additional questions or want to talk to him further and schedule a time to do, this is what we call an informational interview, right? Where you have a professional in the career of your interest and you schedule a time and you just chat with him and ask questions. This is obviously a great way to do that, is through our career spotlights. You get their contact information. They've kind of seen you in the spotlight, and so have no problem communicating with you further.